So we're going to see yours. Timberlane Performing Arts Center. My name is Eric Constantino. I am the interim coordinator for the Performing Arts Center here. And it's been a 20-year goal of mine to bring student artwork here into our lobby. And so this fall I talked with Christina Carria and Dessa Manny about asking art students to create canvases. Now originally I had the idea of just 3 paintings representing dance, theater, and music. And Christina and Dessa came back and they tripled down on that suggestion and said, well, we have 9 students in the Art Honor Society, and what about representing the fine arts, not just the performing arts? And I was like, what a great idea. I wish I had thought of it. But credit where it's due. And Christina and I have been working together for a few years now on these big art projects in the library, and just honoring what her stewardship and inspiration for these kids. So now we're bringing it to the PAC. Now we're not just unveiling these paintings in the lobby, these will be permanent installations in our lobby, right along the walls up high. So when people come into Timberlane, into the Performing Arts Center, they will be greeted by the most important thing we have going on here: the creativity, the passion, the talent of our students. And there's a lot of publicity going on out there about strange things happening at the school and TikTok and all that stuff, and yes, there's an issue there. But look around, ladies and gentlemen, at these kids here, and these kids are also, should be, the talk of the district as well. And I think once you see each of these paintings unveiled, you will share with me, well, how proud I am every day for the last 35 years to walk into a school, into a building, and especially for me, the PAC, to celebrate and do my best to let kids shine. So tonight, it's all about them. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Currier, who will be talking about this process. The students will unveil their paintings. We'll kind of go around in a gallery walk, so and the student will take a moment to talk about their painting, their inspiration. And if anyone wants to stay at 7 o'clock, we're doing an art night in the recital hall, where our students will be performing whatever they feel like performing. So we have some Beatles songs happening apparently, some poetry, some flute music, and who knows what else. But again, to me, that's what it's all about: giving students, our kids, the ability to call the shots, and us supporting them as opposed to telling them what to do. And if you give a kid an inch, a good kid an inch, they'll give you back a mile, or a 4-foot by 4-foot painting. So I'd like to turn this over to Ms. Currier and our first unveiling with Mr. Frankie Sheffield. So here we go.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I'm very excited to see some visual art up here in the PAC, and tonight we're going to just talk about how the art encompasses everything from literature to music, theater, and fine art, digital art, photography, all that. So I had the students choose the prompt they wanted to use, what form of art. So Frankie, what's the one that you chose?
I chose theater.
Right, so Frankie's a big theater kid. And he actually is going first because he's in a production at another event tonight. So we're going to let him unveil first so he can move along. So is Marshall here? Marshall was going to unveil. Can you be my unveiling person, Marshall? Oh, thank you. I need an assistant. So we're going to unveil Frankie's painting and then talk a little bit about it. So 1, 2. Woo! Love is that the students got to form their own concepts after they got their prompt. So So Frankie, what made you come up with this design, this composition?
So I was really interested in doing the idea of like a mostly empty stage with like a full audience. I didn't want to do like a specific show or like performance of any type on the stage because that limits it to who can connect with the piece. So I really wanted to do something that was more of a meaning. And so I originally had the idea of doing like a ghost light on stage, which is just like a light bulbs for when the stage is dark. But I really, like the last week, I came up with the idea of doing a heart instead of a light bulb.
So this here is like
So
human
this is a heart. And so it's like you put your heart on the stage no matter what you do when you perform. And so creating like the big grand theater with like the full audience, just to have the simplicity in the middle of like, this is what you do.
Yes.
So.
Right. I really like how I feel like I'm on that stage. The way the lights come down really dramatically and just like the ambiance of the big space and that one thing in the middle. So is there anything that was challenging?
I haven't painted since elementary school, so it really was a big challenge.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of help from my students in Miss Courier, so my peers in Miss Courier, so that was really great. The hardest thing, like in specific, was probably like putting onto canvas what I had envisioned.
Yes.
Because you don't realize how much paint goes on these.
Yes.
It's a lot of paint, a lot of layering.
Right, making that connection, what's up here and getting it on here. And I just want to say these students spent between 10 and 30 hours each. I would say upward of 15 to 30 hours on these paintings. They came in during studies and after school and worked on these. These were not part of any classroom thing I was doing with them. This was extra. So kudos to you. Great job.
Thank you.
So Miss Sam Marino, you worked tirelessly on this piece.
Yeah, for a long time.
Sam got literature as her prompt. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why you chose that or how you felt about doing it?
When I first saw it as one of the options, I immediately thought of what I painted, so
Yeah.
it was kind of like a click right away.
Right, because you love to read.
Yeah.
You love literature. Wonderful. Well, without further ado, where's Mark? 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. As I'm sure you can tell, these are pages from a book. So tell us about how you formed your concept, Sam. What drove it?
I just immediately thought of Alice in Wonderland and how the rabbit hole kind of represents imagination. So I wanted to make it look like a book in some way. That's why I did I cut out all these pages from a dictionary and then glued them on and then painted the rabbit hole and then different characters interacting with each other.
Really, really strong. How did you choose the characters? Were they favorites of yours?
I don't, I just randomly chose them.
Wow.
I knew I wanted some interaction, so I wanted to do the dragon from The Hobbit and then Harry Potter and then characters that kind of you wouldn't see together.
Something unexpected. Do you have a favorite character that you painted?
Yeah, Frankenstein.
Right, I think you did that. I like how he stands out against the rest. He's the only green one.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you treated the edges of the canvas.
I put on it's construction paper to kind of represent a book spine, so it would add more about the literature element of books and reading.
Yeah, I thought that was really clever. It's just clever on so many levels. I also really like how you can see the text through some of the lighter colors, so it sort of has a transparent feel to it. Is there anything you learned while doing this process?
How time consuming it was.
Yeah,
I didn't expect it to take as long as it did.
Yeah, Sam, you might win the prize for spending the most time on all these individual characters. You worked tirelessly. And they started them in mid-October, so they spent about 8-9 weeks on these. Yeah, so we came up with the idea in September. We got the canvases in early October and just started painting. So it's amazing to me that all 9 got them finished. One of them was just finishing his a few hours ago, but we got it done. All right, well, great job, Sam. Really. So Owen, you got band instruments. Can
Yep.
you tell us how you ended up with that? Did you choose it or was it by default?
Yeah, I actually ended up choosing band instruments because I kind of had a vision for it. I wanted to go for a Picasso type of look, and that's what I did.
Right.
Yeah.
So the name of the painting, do you remember the name of the painting that this was inspired?
The Three Musicians
Yeah,
by Picasso.
by Picasso.
Yep.
Good, all right. Well, without further ado, Miss Marshall. 1, 2, 3. So, Owen, what was the most enjoyable part about making this painting?
I would say probably doing the beard of that guy.
Yeah, yeah. There's some funky
You can't see the
textures
top of his
going
head,
on,
but
right?
yeah, just being able to kind of like, I don't know, do almost whatever I want in a
Yeah.
cool pattern.
So you found it freeing because it was sort of abstract, would you say?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, definitely freeing considering everything is pretty much boxed in
Yeah.
one solid color, and that as well. So yeah.
I'm amazed at the clean lines you got. You know, your areas of flat color are so successful, and the
Took a
clean
very long
lines.
time.
Although just 2 days ago we had a little bit of a episode, right? So part of the creative process is problem solving. So Owen and I thought it'd be a good idea to take a paint marker to do these lines. And then we stopped. Was that yesterday that happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was yesterday in the morning. And he looked at me, he said, Mrs. Currier, I hate it. And I went, oh no. So what did we do to fix it?
We actually
What
ended
didn't
up-
you like about it? I'm sorry, then how did you fix
no,
it?
you're good. I didn't like the sheen the paint marker had. It
Yeah.
kind of popped out
Yeah,
as
it got
like
really
an-
shiny.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
a very artificial look to a very organic-ish look.
Yeah.
You know, very
Yeah.
organic shapes. And then we ended up actually going over all of the black lines with acrylic paint. And you know, Picasso is pretty messy and weird with his paintings, but they
Right.
all come together in a way when you stand back, you're like, oh, I get it.
Yes, yes.
so
Yes,
yeah.
I love all these inconsistent lines. They really have a fun kind of playful feel as
Right.
opposed to being perfect. So is there anything you learned while doing the process of the painting?
How to get a clean line, I would say. 'Cause the entire thing is that.
Right. And did you learn any tricks to get a clean line?
Yeah, a good brush. Once
good
you get
brush.
a favorite brush, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta have your favorite brush.
And you have to be very still going down.
Yes,
Yep.
very steady hand.
Yep.
Very good. Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. This is beautiful. Mia got digital art for hers, which was a little bit of a challenge. Do you want to talk a little bit about how we had to work up a concept?
Okay, so it was, when I first found out I had digital art, I was pretty stressed out because I know absolutely nothing about digital art. I'm like oil paints, I like to do portraits, I like to blend. So I was, having a hard time thinking of something that would symbolize digital art. So I came up with a couple ideas and I ended up coming up with a keyboard type thing and incorporating certain icons that used in digital art on the keyboard, showing how you are using your hands in digital art. It's just a whole different aspect of a style basically. So yeah.
All right, well, we don't want to keep them in suspense. One, two,
Don't wanna,
1, 2, 3. So Mia, tell us about the process, and first of all, tell me what the most challenging part was.
Okay, so I'm not used to painting with acrylic paint. I've never been a big fan of it because of how quickly it dries. I was taught to paint with oil, so this was pretty challenging because I like to blend a lot. So I was introduced, Ms. Currier introduced me to, what's that thing called that you put it,
The retarder?
Yes, retarder, which keeps it wet for long periods of time, so you can mix colors and not have to keep remaking it, being afraid that you're gonna make a different color. So my biggest challenge, I think I would say, was the mouse in making it, because I didn't want to make it look too 2D. because this is very like clean, like keyboards are very clean, but I wanted it to have some like shadows and different colors of like one color.
Yeah, I was impressed with the wood texture you came up with.
The wood, I did not plan that at all. It just like happened, I swear.
And I just turned around and all of a sudden it was done.
Because I originally planned for it to just be like a brown table, but I felt like it looked too 2D compared, like, because this is just like gray and black. And I wanted to show that this is like quite literally a desk.
Yes.
So I added a bunch of different browns and kind of just like went with it.
Really, really cool. So, did you have a least favorite part besides trying to come up with the concept?
Least favorite, probably the icons. I mean, I had fun picking out all the colors because that's where I really wanted to like make it pop because there's not a lot of color in like the surrounding. But yeah, it's really hard to keep like clean lines like that and like make them all look very planned out and like structured.
Right, because it's a man-made thing, so it has to be perfect.
Exactly.
Right, well, really, really beautiful job, and I love how you spread out the colors to keep it balanced and repeated a certain color scheme.
Ooh, yeah, that was hard too. I didn't want to like make two colors like be next to each other, so I had to like come up with a lot of different like shades and stuff like that.
It's beautiful, and I also love the diagonal composition. That makes it really strong, but then the mouse kind of balances. So, really, really beautiful job. Lauren's a senior, and Lauren got photography. How did you feel about getting photography for your prompt, Lauren?
I was very excited because personally I'm a photographer. It's my preferred art style. Though I do enjoy painting, I usually use watercolor. So this was definitely a contrast from that. But I was a little stumped by what to do because photography is naturally almost the opposite of painting. It's like, and I am not good at photorealism. So I was a little stumped by what I wanted to create. So originally I planned on doing a camera with some like photos that I collaged on behind it, but I just didn't think that it was a very creative idea. It didn't really challenge me to think about photography, and it didn't challenge me to think about like film or movie production or anything like that, so I kind of changed my idea.
Okay, cool. And if any of you saw our inspiration board over there, there's some actual old-fashioned 35mm film that Lauren kind of looked at while she was in the process and looked at, she actually photographed the film as an inspiration for the painting. So it's based on an original photograph that she took of the film. So without further ado, 1, 2, 3. Lauren, tell us a little bit about the creative process and how it changed and how you landed where you did.
So after I kind of settled on this idea, I knew that I wanted to recreate some of my own film strips in some way. So I took some of them, I cut them up, and I kind of used tape to mold them into a 3D shape because I wanted something more than just a flat line. Much like Mia's painting, I didn't want it to feel too flat. Like she talked about like adding some like 3D. So that's kind of how you have these like textures that come off the canvas a bit. So I taped them down, I photographed them, and I kind of broke it down into different colors to kind of get a simple but 3D look.
Yeah, I really love the abstraction of how you just broke it down to different values of gray on a grayscale, and you made it really dramatic by having such quick changes in value and highlights. And what would you say was your favorite part of doing it?
I really enjoyed the aspect of like creating a reference image myself and then putting that reference image on the canvas. I thought that was really fun. I wasn't recreating someone else's art, I wasn't recreating someone else's idea, I was creating my own idea.
That's great. I love that. Is there something that you learned along the way?
I realized that just because a reference image looks a certain way doesn't mean it looks that good while it's on the canvas. A lot of these shapes, like you'll realize, go from top to bottom, and some of the natural like highlights on my reference image were like more square, and they kind of just stuck out on the canvas, so I ended up
So you had to modify it to make it work. Cool. Well, if you get a minute, you should check out the actual photograph that's up on the board of how Lauren began the whole process. But I just love it. It's so funky and abstract, and you're absolutely right. If it was flat, it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't be interesting, and it wouldn't have all those value changes. So really, really good job. Lily, tell them what your prompt was and how you felt about the prompt that you got.
So I got dance, and I am not super familiar with dance. I mean, I took like ballet classes when I was, a young child, but I've never been like a dancer or anything like that. So I was kind of intimidated, I guess is the word, because I'm also more of a collage artist and a digital artist rather than a painter. So I decided to incorporate that into the background by making a collage of sheet music, which I got with Mr. C and Mr. Schweiz's help, so thank you for that. And it was definitely fun trying to challenge myself to do a more massive piece that is in a medium that I'm not super comfortable with.
Cool. All right, well, without further ado, 1, 2, 3. Whoop. Tell us about your process and how you came up with what the inspiration was for the dancers.
So, because I am not a painter, and like Lauren mentioned, photorealism is not my strong suit, I was looking for something pretty simple and geometric that I could put onto a canvas that would make it have a focal point in the center. So I was looking through old magazine covers, and I found a New Yorker from 1921, I believe it was, in kind of the middle of the Art Deco movement. And that's where this came from. And then the color, I kind of get overexcited and do things without thinking too much. So I kind of did a big circle around the dancers in color, and then I was like, oh, that did not come out how I thought it would. So I had to kind of problem solve a little bit, and I ended up doing their aura, which I ended up liking a lot more. I think it added a lot more interest to the piece, and a lot more emotion, I think.
Absolutely. One thing I think that really makes this piece work is the contrast of the hard lines and the simple black and white with this very free, like you said, the aura. There's a really nice contrast going on, and they complement each other. And I really like how you kept the acrylic kind of watered down so you could see the music notes through it. And I just feel like the energy in which you did it was very excited, and I think that really comes through when you look at the painting. It doesn't look labored over, it looks like energized. So.
No, I was excited. It was a really fun thing to do, and that was part of my favorite part, is just being in the room, because I had a free period with a couple of other people who were working on the same project.
Yes.
And Marshall, our unveiler, who was doing an AP art piece. So it was just really fun and stimulating being in that environment with people.
Yeah,
That was my
well,
favorite
it
part.
shows. Really beautiful job. Thank you. So tell us what your prompt is and how you felt about getting the prompt that you got.
My prompt was fine art, and I was really excited to choose it, but then once I actually chose it, I had no idea what I was going to do.
Yes.
So I got a little too excited when I was choosing the prompt, but I think it went all right. Yeah.
How did you settle on the objects you chose as your subject matter?
Mostly because of what you told me, that I didn't really understand what the prompt was in the first place.
Yes.
I thought it was more like a theme rather than like an actual prompt to draw the art form itself. So my real motivation was just the time restraint. So I chose something kind of more simple and less of what I originally had in mind, which was like an actual fine art piece.
Right.
But I'm really happy with what I chose to do.
Right. So Julia was going to sort of do a painting, right? Because that's fine art, and I totally understand that reason. But I mentioned to her that when we look at yours, we have to know it's different than digital photography. So what tools? We talked a lot about the tools you use when you make art. So a painting, I should say, because there's all different forms. So we're going to go ahead and unveil it, Julia, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. 1, 2, 3. I really love about this one is it has a great concept. I think Julia really started with a concept that was very imaginative, And if you know anything about art, you might notice some art styles, anything about fine art. So Julia, why don't you speak to people about what the different colors represent?
So each paint blob, I guess, represents an artist that is really popular within the world of fine art. For example, Van Gogh, obviously, I think. And I kind of wanted to not just portray like the palette itself, but like the meaning behind a fine art and the stories behind it and all the history behind it. So I chose a lot of recognizable things that people would recognize.
Right.
Yeah.
How about the green? Can you tell them what the green is?
The green. I always forget the name of the
Pointillisms?
Yes.
Raw?
So the green is pointillism, but the specific artist I always forget the name of.
George Seurat.
Yes,
Yeah.
that one. Van Gogh,
Yeah.
Picasso is the red, and then Krempf?
Gustav Klimt?
Klimt.
Yes.
One of those two.
Yes. I love Klimt because you can see there's a little bit of gold leaf mixed in. He actually collaged gold leaf into his paintings. So I just thought it was a brilliant concept. I think, again, the composition's excellent, that you chose the funky swirl of the old-fashioned palette, the thickness, the dimension of the palette shows through, and this little trail, the idea that you could just paint and that's what would come off the brush. What was challenging about it, Julia?
The most challenging part, honestly, was this.
Yeah.
Because it's so difficult to recreate something so effortless. And it was really a struggle. I had to cover it up at one point because I hated the way that it looked.
You struggled. That was your first puddle of paint, I believe.
Yeah, it was the first one I started and the last one I completed, and it was just it was a roller coaster.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. It's not always smooth sailing with the creative process, right? We can get upset, we need to walk away, we need to come back, we need to get new ideas, bounce it off other people. You stand away from it, that always makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But when you get a chance, check out the thick texture on the blue. It's probably a ½ an inch deep.
Yeah.
There's like all these layers. And you used a palette knife at one point, right?
I did, yeah. Because Mr. C told me to.
Really, really cool and beautiful job on the brushes too.
Thank
They
you.
really have a nice feathery texture on the end. So well done. So Amy, tell us about your prompt and tell us how you felt about using this prompt.
So I had string instruments, and when we were given the 9 prompts at first, it stuck out to me most because the one I was most familiar with, because I played the violin from 3rd grade up until 8th.
Ah.
And so I actually fought with Owen over this prompt, and he got band instruments.
Nice. All right, I think we should unveil it and then talk about it. 1, 2, 3. So this is a really challenging point of view to work with. So tell me, and it's beautiful. I mean, I think that you really rose to the occasion and handled the foreshortening of the violin really well. Tell me how and why you chose this particular, you started with a photo reference as a starting point, right? How did you choose it?
So my original idea was I wanted to include like all string instruments, so it was originally a string quartet from the point of view of the first violin, and when I used to be in a string quartet when I was in middle school, so that was the idea. But it was really hard trying to fit all the 4 instruments in, so I just nailed it down to the violin perspective. And this is more of like my point of view and my perspective on string instruments since I played the violin.
Yeah, really cool. I really love how it just brings on a whole different energy when you zoom in close like that and you show it from such an extreme angle. And it's like you almost have to take a second to see what you're looking at, which really makes it a strong composition. Did you have a favorite part about painting it, Amy?
This lower left corner.
Yeah.
This is the best part.
What was satisfying about painting this part?
I didn't think it turned out well because at the time I just it was bare and I was just starting to do like the main color of the violin.
Yeah.
I actually kind of got frustrated, and part of this is finger painted. So
Yeah, I noticed that you were doing that, and I'm like, I'm not going to say anything because it's working. Put your fingers in the paint all you want. If it comes out like this, do your thing. Yeah, I noticed that, because I think that sometimes doing these hard values changes can be very satisfying because it has a lot of impact in three-dimensional quality when you do that. I don't know, I think I might know what your least favorite part
Hand.
was. Yep, the hand. The hand was hard. And you did a lot of problem solving to show that this hand was in front of the other hand.
Yeah.
It's hard. Skin tones are tough. Anybody that's painted knows skin tones are really tough. And you really saw the process through and made it work. So really great job. Thank you. Ari got the prompt of singing.
Yes.
Tell us, Ari, about how you felt about having this prompt.
So I was really excited to get singing. I just love like music in general. I am a singer, just not a very good one. So yeah, I just thought it was going to be really fun to paint.
Okay, cool. Let's see, do I want to ask you any questions? I think we could just go ahead and unveil it. And then we'll ask questions. 1, 2, 3. So Ari, tell us about how you chose this image for an inspiration.
So I didn't want to incorporate just like a physical, like visual of someone singing. I wanted to incorporate like the energy that like singing gives off. So I wanted to incorporate like warm tones, just a lot of emotion and like energy. So yeah.
So what was your most enjoyable part of doing the painting?
Honestly, I really liked painting all the colors, and the skin tone was really fun because I've never really done skin tone before.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really challenging, but I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. I think you did a really great job of sort of making it pseudo-abstract and keeping the values really extreme, but still blending enough. I especially love this area right here, the contrast of the lashes against the skin. In the nails, the hands are really well done. There's a beautiful little French manicure going on there that really pops against the dark. What was the most challenging?
I think the most challenging too was also, you know, painting the skin. Like I said before, I hadn't really done before, and especially on this scale, it's so large, so I really needed to get like every value correct.
Yes.
So yeah, I learned a lot about value and yeah, where color should be.
Yes. It's interesting because it sounds like what was the most challenging might have sort of been the most enjoyable too. Do you think it was maybe working through that process of how to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really love what you did here with, you just did this thin layer of yellow and then the red showed through. So if you look it up close, you can kind of see there's some thinner areas where you can still see the yellow through the cloth. And tell us about the decision to have the album behind her.
So I just really liked like the visual interest that it gave and like the depth that it gave. And I just thought it was a really nice background to have the record behind her.
So Ari did a sketch. If you go over and look at the board, you can see her original sketch on a piece of lined paper. And to help with proportion, we projected it. People that grew up in the 70s might know what I'm talking about, a projector where you have the big lamp that comes up. So believe it or not, I use that in my classroom for probably most of these. We use to some extent just to help with proportion so the focus can really be on the painting part. That kind of helps us with some drawing issues and composition things. And then you have something, you know, a map kind of to work on. So needless to say, I think they all did an amazing job. We invite you all to have the artists. The artists are going to stay by their work for like maybe 10 or 15 minutes and just let people walk around and ask the artists questions and just enjoy. Thank you all so much for coming.
Oh my god, I love the textures. I love it. It's so fun.